Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back again for SummerSlam Night 2 reactions. On paper, 2 looked a lot better than Night 1, so at least on paper. So let's dive into each match and see if it did pan out that way. The first match of the night features Rhea Ripley and Io Sky taking on Naomi for that Women's World Championship. And yeah, I think we both kind of thought that Naomi would retain here, and it felt like the reason would probably be Io and Rhea still up in each other's drama, so to speak. And that's it. That is how it panned out. So, KP, curious to get your thoughts on this one. Did this one live up to your expectations? And what was your rating for this first kickoff match here at SummerSlam Night 2?
Yeah, I think in terms of living up to the expectations, maybe not quite, but it was still a good match in my opinion. I think when you look back, obviously to that of to Rhea Ripley and Io Sky from Evolution, Rhea and Io and Bianca at WrestleMania. Obviously, you got two absolutely incredible matches there that took place for the same championship, literally just in the past few months. So this one, obviously, it's got a lot to live up to. But I think it was a good match. It was quite fun. I didn't think it was as good as those particular ones, but yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the reason why would have been, but it just didn't really hit as hard as I think it could have done. It was still a very good match. Like I think it was full of quality throughout, and I gave it an 8 out of 10 in the end, which is still a very good rating. But yeah, I think obviously with the with the recent history and these women putting on some absolute classic contests, it just wasn't quite as good as those. So I think on any other year, you have this as a triple threat match, you're going to think, oh wow, that's a really good match and whatever, and yeah, you're probably going to hold it in high estimations. But just because of the recent history, I think maybe just suffered a little bit comparatively speaking to those. And I don't want to compare it to them, but I feel like it's hard to not compare them, sort of thing. Like it's very difficult to not do so. But I think when you start off WrestleMania, I think naturally if you're not in the main event, you want to be sort of like opening the show because you want to obviously be the first people that are out there, get the crowd going, get the crowd pumped, and to make a statement on the very first match of the card, just so that you can sort of set the pace for the rest of the evening. And I think they all did a good job. Io and Rhea are very consistent. We've seen that throughout the year, and Naomi, she's in arguably the run of her life right now, just absolutely killing it. Doing such a good job of it. Her gimmick's top tier in my opinion. But yeah, Naomi winning, definitely the right call. Early days in her championship reign, don't want to end it too soon, and she'll now go into Clash in Paris up against Stephanie Vicaire. So I'm excited for that one. Really looking forward to it. But yeah, it basically went down how I thought it would. Rhea and Io getting each other's business, and then ultimately Naomi capitalizes on the moment, and yeah, pulling the tights of Rhea to get the victory. But yeah, I liked it. 8 out of 10, I think it's pretty solid, but just wasn't quite up to those recent matches that we have had for the championship.
Yeah, you mentioned not comparing it to the last match, which is kind of hard because that said match was just 3 weeks ago. So yeah, I think just by default we are always going to compare it, and I think by default as well, it was just never going to compare because that was a once in a very great while quality of match that you just don't get every PLE. So you would think that SummerSlam would be maybe a spot where they could and potentially get up to that level, but obviously I just don't feel like it really did. In terms of the match itself, for me, yeah, I felt like it was kind of what we thought would happen, and then there were some fun spots, but for me personally, I feel like this didn't quite get the time it should have. And that just may be again trying to live up to the hype that Evolution brought us, but yeah, this one just didn't live up to the hype. So that was just my final takeaway there. And I felt like the ending with the roll up, granted, is a heel, but you know how much I love roll up pins. So yeah, this one didn't quite do it for me, and my rating for this one is 6 out of 10. So two count difference there, which is pretty rare for the two of us. But yeah, this one just didn't live up to my expectations, and kind of like you said, if you're not the main event, you want to. I think the leadoff match has a lot of pressure on it, and a roll up pin for that from a heel nonetheless for the kickoff match just didn't quite do it for me. But going on to the next match here, we have the very hyped and highly expectation-filled match of the arguably, or maybe I don't think there really is an argument, the best division in WWE right now, and that is the SmackDown men's tag division. This one was filled with spots from a Spanish fly through the table, Candice LeRae being knocked off a ladder from inside the ring, through a ladder on the side of the ring. What else? Sunset flip power bomb. Yeah, and a theme that we start to see throughout the night, a good portion of the night, is interference. This one had plenty of interference. Any team, if they had any of a relationship with anyone else on the roster, they made their presence felt here. So KP, how'd you feel? Did this match live up to your expectations? And do you think the right winner was picked here? And what's your overall rating?
So yes to both questions. I think that when it comes down to whether it lived up to expectations or not, I think it definitely did, because this was complete and utter chaos from start to finish, as everybody completely would have expected it to have been. So yeah, I think just literally from the opening bell to the end. To the ending result, I think it was just wild. There was so much going on throughout the entirety of the contest, like you said. Loads of tables going through. A little bit of a spot fest, I think, during that little table segment, with obviously the four set up at ringside, and then you got teams going through it in each corner. People going through it regardless, whatever. And I think maybe that's the only time I'd possibly put it down as possibly a little bit of a spot fest, but it wasn't necessarily a bad one. It was quite a fun one. It was quite good. I think Spotfest is fair for that particular segment, but just it wasn't like a terrible thing sort of thing. It was very entertaining nonetheless. But yeah, in terms of the Wyatts winning, I don't have a complaint with that. I went into it thinking the Wyatts probably would retain, and I think this made the most sense, purely for the fact that the recent history of the tag team division being built up, so strongly, as you've already mentioned. And just having to sort of like fend off the Wyatts, and ultimately they failed in the end. The Wyatts captured the gold, but they're still sort of like public enemy number one when it comes to the tag division. We saw that right at the very start of the matchup, when they would all target the Wyatts immediately. So I think the storytelling there was good as well. But just everybody getting involved was absolutely crazy. Candice LeRae and Nikki and the likes of Eric Rowan and B-Fab. Yeah, there were a fair few people around here for this one, and they made it sort of like their own little thing at one point, which is quite funny. Whilst everyone's getting a little bit of a breather, a little bit of a rest. But just complete chaos, carnage from start to finish. I had a great time watching. I thought it was so much fun. It was one that I was most looking forward to for the entirety of the weekend, and it certainly lived up to my expectations. And it probably really just, it just made like for a feel good matchup. Maybe my only criticism would be that the ending, the finish, maybe felt a little bit flat. Maybe possibly because of the crowd. I think the crowd was a little bit sort of deflated by it, which maybe sort of like put a dampener on the win. But the Wyatts winning, like I said, is the right call. I truly do agree with that. But yeah, cracking match one. I don't give these out very often on the channel because it's a rarity. But I gave this one a 10 out of 10 just purely for how much fun I had watching it. And yeah, I just was so looking forward to it, and it didn't let me down at all.
Yeah, I certainly give out the tens a lot more than you do. You giving out a 10, I think, is a testament to the matchup. One of the things I like best about this match is also kind of a double-edged sword, in that it was something that I didn't love either. Let me explain. I like that the women got involved, because that's just something different we don't see very often in the men's TLC match. But on that same note, I felt like maybe there was a bit too much interference. Obviously, that's a very thin line you have to try and toe, with the Dudleys and the Hardys at ringside as well. I think there's a lot of pressure for these kind of matches, and you have to try to do something that hasn't been done before. And to be honest, there's just not a lot of that available. So. And you speak of a spot fest. I think I've used that term probably too much in the past, just because with these kind of matches, it's kind of hard to do anything else other than a spot fest, because you got 12 guys in the ring. You have to do something. You just can't have mindless brawling, because that probably wouldn't be entertaining either. So I don't feel like it was. I think I've definitely seen TLC matches that would probably get put into that category a lot more than this one. So yeah, I guess I'll just say that. But yeah, I think the Wyatt Six retaining, clearly they had the most, they had the biggest advantage because they had the most amount of people helping them out. So it all makes sense. It all works out. And I think it kind of keeps everyone else safe in that regard as well. So I don't give this one a 10, but I do give it a 9. Still pretty high as well, and probably one of our highest of the weekend. So with that, moving on to the next match, which has Becky Lynch defending her Women's Intercontinental title against Lyra Valkyria. This match was brutal. What more can we say on that? Becky was clearly out here to teach Lyra a lesson. The zip tie spot, which, had her tied up on the ring post while Becky just, beat the living tar out of her. That was crazy. And that wasn't a short segment either. She had those zip ties on her for quite some time. Taking a lot of force from Becky, and then for Lyra to be able to dish out offense while still having that zip tie around her wrist, that was pretty impressive as well. Some of the things these men and women are able to do, just with both hands free, for her to be able to do those things, some of those things with with her hands tied, was pretty impressive for me. The chair spot as well. Lyra caught in between that chair, getting kind of tossed around at ringside. Yeah, this one was had a little bit of everything. And then of course the Bayley interference. I think we kind of thought that could be a possibility, just wasn't sure, kind of when and where and who she would be there for. So certainly a talking point as well. KP, how'd you like this match? Feel like we had the right winner here, and what was your overall takeaway and rating for this one?
Yeah, this one was hellacious. Let's put it down. Let's put it that way. Really, just basically just doubling down on what you said already. It was chaotic, from the very get go. And Becky was really sort of aggressive here, but as was Lyra. They were both, very matching for the feud. I think it's what it deserved in the end, ultimately. With the stipulation being that if Lyra does lose, Becky is safe from Lyra essentially because she can't challenge for the title anymore. I think that put that like little twist on that we had obviously at the start of the that we had at the previous match in the feud where Lara lost it. So there was a lot on the line here for Lyra Valkyria especially, and obviously with her losing, I guess you could say that that's the end of the feud here because she's not going to get another chance at Becky Lynch. So for me personally, I would say that it's a great way to end the feud. I thought it was just it was brutal from both women, and that's what it needed to be. It was very high intensity, this feud. It got very heated very quickly, and it seemed to just keep at that heated level for a long period of time, right up until the end. With Bayley getting involved, yeah, happy with how that went because obviously it gives Lyra a clear direction of where to go to next. Because they've sort of had a bit of a back and forth anyway in the build up to this one. Anyway, so yeah, they'll continue that, I would assume, and then this allows Becky to go on to her separate thing, which is very interesting to see what's going to be next for her. As for my rating for the match, I gave it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was just full of quality. To be fair, really enjoyed it from start to finish, and just I was very gripped and intrigued by everything that went down. And like I say, it was a lot of good spots in this one, and it matched the intensity of the feud, which was just ultimately what you want. But yeah, just. I think they've done a great job with this feud. They really, really have. It's been one of the best feuds of the year, I would say. The rivalry's been great. This has been booked well. The story's been good. So, for it to end here, happy with that one. And, great way to top it all off.
While I will agree with you in that this was one of the best feuds of the year so far, or, over the last calendar year, however you want to look at it, I understand why they did it this way. But I also was a bit frustrated. Kind of took my rating down a little bit. Originally, I was looking at a 9, and I took it down to 8.5 simply because of the Bayley interference. I just felt like it kind of took away from what potentially could have been. And maybe part of that's just me saying that because I felt Lyra was the right person to win here, to kind of go full circle, get that title back. But, on the other side of that same coin, Bayley interfering here, incidentally hitting Lyra, costing her the match, I suppose protects Lyra in that, she doesn't have to lose clean here. So, I guess I understand both points of it, but I do feel like that it's not quite the satisfying ending I was looking for. Even if I would have rather have just Becky just win clean, I think, personally. But regardless, this was a great match. And as you mentioned, very intense rivalry, quite a big one too. It's been a while. This being the third one. So I think yeah, I just wanted a little different result, and I think I would have been satisfied with it. But other than that, still 8.5. Pretty decent as well. So I like this one better than the first women's match. So had you told me that was going to be the case afterwards, I may not have believed you. So moving on to the next match, and we have Solo Sikoa defending his U.S. title against Jacob Fatu. Speaking of rivalries, this one has been going for quite a while as well. And this one had pretty good back and forth. I think this one had both Solo and Jacob looking strong and taking and kicking out of finishers that don't typically see that done. I believe commentary made a comment on that as well. So clearly this one was personal and hard hitting. Of course, we did get the interference from MFT, who of course played a role in the match. KP, so continuing the trend of big rivalries, did this one live up to your expectations? And did you feel like this was an appropriate way to end this feud? And what was your overall rating for this one?
No, I don't think this really lived up to the expectations that it could have been. You put the likes of Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu, this family feud, I guess you could call it. All about blood, this one. And you whack them in a steel cage together, put the United States title on the line. A lot of history between the two men. I just think that it promised to be maybe something a lot more special, and it really wasn't in the end, which is unfortunate. I thought it really fell flat. So the opening segments were kind of all right. It starts kind of slow. They're using the cage, as you would expect, making use of the environment. And then it suddenly just sort of like went away when it came to the mid to late stages of the contest. You mentioned a very interesting thing about the kick out of the finishers. Yeah, no one had kicked out of Jacob Fatu's moonsault before. And then Jacob Fatu hit it twice in this match, back to back on Solo, and then he kicked out. So, I mean, you can say that's a very fast way to go from a protective finisher to a, to a no longer protective finisher, I suppose. But I don't know. It's a weird booking call. Not entirely sure I agree with it, to be fair. Maybe kicking out of one is fine, but back to back when no one's kicked out of it beforehand, that's crazy. What a kick out. But regardless of that fact, my main critique is coming towards the end of the contest, where you have the likes of Tonga Loa, Talatonga, JC Mateo, all sort of like coming to the aid of Solo, which was expected. I understand that. And then obviously Jimmy Uso's there to, help try and even the odds. But 1 against 3, it was never going to work. We mentioned that in the podcast going into it. So that just seemed like a weird segment anyway. And ultimately it came down to the guys helping Solo. There was a handcuff incident, with Jacob being handcuffed to the cage. Didn't last too long, whatever. And then ultimately in the end, Solo escapes by leaving the door. Just pulled out to safety. So yeah, I don't know. I just really didn't vibe with this contest. Like, I was really looking forward to it. I thought it was going to be very, very good. But in the end, it just really disappointed for me personally. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. The post-match segment as well just really confused me, because on SmackDown, we basically saw the exact same thing. We're talking about Jacob being in the cage and Talatonga and Solo Sikoa already having escaped at this point. JC Mateo and Tamatonga are already, Tonga Loa are in there. And, Jacob shuts the door and then proceeds to beat the ever-living hell out of both of them. So it's exactly what we saw on SmackDown. The copy and paste was very, very quick, literally 2 nights ago. So that's kind of weird. But, I don't know. It just didn't do anything for me. Really, really didn't. I feel like the feud probably isn't over either, because just of what happened in the matchup. Maybe that's just my opinion, but yeah, I feel like we're basically no further forth from this matchup. It just felt very strange. So yeah, I don't know. Didn't rate it at all, really. 6.5 is very average. So yeah, not a fan. Not a fan at all.
Yeah, not just 2 nights ago did we see the same thing. It feels like we've seen the same thing for weeks on end, with anything involving MFT and Jacob Fatu. And with this being SummerSlam, you would expect something a little higher quality, something different, maybe ending the feud. I think I mentioned in the predictions video, if Solo were to win this, I felt like that would probably be the end of the feud, just because I feel like Jacob has bigger and better things to get off to. But with Solo winning here, and as you mentioned, kicking out of the finishers that hadn't been done before, it's it's a bit of pro and con for me. Pro being, I think that this really helped build Solo up. Having been the person to kick out of those previously protected, super protected finisher, I think that helps him. And I think once upon a time, Solo was dubbed the next big thing. So I think this kind of helps him get back on track. And I don't really feel like hurts Jacob in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I safe to say it did fall flat for me. It didn't feel like the beginning of the match, middle match, was hard hitting, was intense. Felt like it was a rivalry that was getting a blow off match, if you will. But then the MFT come in just like we expected. And yeah, from there, it just felt like I've seen this 100 times before. And this is always the kind of line you have to toe with the likes of MFT, Bloodline, Judgment Day. It's just if you do it every week, when you do it on a big stage, it doesn't feel any different. It just feels like another week of wrestling. So unfortunately, yeah, this one didn't quite live up to my expectations either. I was kind of hopeful this would be the end of it, but as you mentioned, maybe it's not. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I was looking forward to this one quite a bit, and just didn't do it for me either. Moving on to the next match, we have AJ Styles going up against Dominik Mysterio for that Intercontinental title. Being the 20th anniversary of the Eddie Guerrero custody match, we have pretty much the entire match dedicated to Eddie Guerrero from both men, not just Dominik Mysterio, AJ Styles, from the tights to the car, to the spots in the match. We had a lot of tributes to Eddie here, which I thought was a lot of fun. Oddly enough, the last three matches, so half the matches of the night, we get a bunch of interference. And oddly enough, the match that contains a member of the Judgment Day did not have some interference. So that was refreshing to see. And I think the overall kind of theme of the match was something different, something new. KP, how did you like this match? Did it live up to your expectations? I know anytime we see AJ Styles in a match, we do have pretty lofty expectations. Did this one live up to it, and how did you rate it overall?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that this match was pretty good. Like, I wouldn't say it was like an all-time classic or anything, but I think that, just being it seemed to be like a tribute to Eddie Guerrero, like you've already glossed over. Loads of things throughout the contest that, were basically screamed Eddie, especially with that, that chair involvement. Dominik Mysterio grabbing the chair whilst the referee distracted, and with a turnbuckle, smashing it down onto the canvas, throwing it to AJ, knock down the classic Eddie Guerrero, but then AJ, wrapping it over his head sort of thing, and then, laying flat out himself. Referee comes over and is like, "What's going on here?" Made for quite an amusing spot, quite funny, and I always like seeing the Eddie stuff because it's. It was unique. He was so innovative with that. Back when he was doing it. So whenever it does come up, like every so often, I always do quite like it, like a nice sort of throwback. Then obviously with the finish as well, with the boot and unzipping it, AJ going for the calf crusher, and obviously the boot coming off. Dom then proceeds to whack AJ around the face with the boot whilst the referee's distracted. Yeah, I thought that was good as well. A little bit of throwback to Eddie and Angle from WrestleMania 20. Just some really, really, really good spots in the contest. But yeah, I think as a a big fan of AJ Styles, and definitely a fan of Dom too. The fact that we had him being in the match, you've already glossed over this. Not having any interference as well, and Dom's pretty common when it comes to getting interference and help and whatever. So that was quite a surprise. I like the fact that we had something a little bit different. But AJ, obviously, he's had some utterly unbelievable matches, and I don't think this was in that category. It was a good match. Don't get me wrong. It was good. It was fun to watch, but I don't think it was like your all-time classic or your masterpiece that you're gonna really look forward to watching. Like, I don't know, like 5 years down the line or whatever. So yeah, it was a good contest, but nothing particularly special. Dom winning was quite a surprise to me. I really thought that based on the build to this one, that AJ would get the win because obviously the injury, whether it was legit or not. I thought they just weren't really doing anything with Dom, and they would allow AJ to get the win here and sort of like do something with the championship going forward. But alas, a surprise. I quite liked the surprise, and yeah, Dom winning was unexpected, but it was good. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. So like I said, it was good, but just nothing completely special.
Yeah, I would agree. I think with the likes of AJ Styles, I tend to set this bar that's while often he does achieve it, I think eventually you're going to have matches that don't quite achieve it. And while I love Dom's heel work, I do feel like he does still have some improvement to have done inside the ring. So that could potentially be a part of it. But in terms of like entertainment, I found myself like thoroughly enjoying this match because it just the spots, both the guys laying down with the chairs, that was great. And yeah, just a feel good match. Like you said, not a cult classic. You're gonna go back and watch, for years to come. But for what it was, being the match right before the main event, I thought it was entertaining enough. And yeah, I thought AJ Styles was going to win it as well, so that might have played a part as well. It feels like a lot of the matches I thought was going to have a certain outcome over the weekend didn't quite. But yeah, happy to see no interference. And I think, in the grand scheme of things, for Dom's character, having beaten AJ Styles on a big stage like SummerSlam certainly will help his character going forward. So I can't recall if I gave the rating or not, but just in case I didn't, I give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Moving on to the main event, John Cena defending his title against Cody Rhodes for the Undisputed Championship. This match was long, but I think it's safe to say I can't recall the last time I've seen that many finishers in a match. Brought me back to an era before Triple H. I'm sure there are a few names that will come to your mind, but that used to be, just finisher fest. And this one, while I wouldn't call it a finisher fest, had a ton of finishers, and every time it felt like had to be the end. It wasn't quite. So yeah, KP, curious to get your thoughts on this one. I know we have quite difference in taste, which doesn't happen often, but I know this is one of them. Curious to get your thoughts on the matches here, overall takeaways, and of course your rating.
Well, buckle up, I think, is basically the right thing I'll say here. There's a lot to go through. So, Cody and Cena, yeah, it was dubious going into this one. We already had, this heel John Cena and this face Cody Rhodes. Setting up the street fight, the way that it happened, obviously with the the forcing of the hand to sign the contract or whatever, and then on Friday we have John Cena come on out and turn face. I didn't really buy it, to be honest with you. I thought it was all a bit of a ruse. But then we had a ruse on Saturday, and I was thinking, okay, well that's weird. We're gonna have two ruses in 2 nights, and then ultimately there was no ruse. It was John Cena face as can be, and that was exactly that. So first and foremost, I think that this was a way of WWE basically saying like, the past few months didn't work. We've realized we biffed it, and the guys that were with Cena during that heel turn are no longer around, and yeah, they're not involved. So as Cena said on SmackDown, he's been hung out to dry. Basically, he's been left alone, and he's got no one to to rely on, no one to corrupt him anymore, and now that he's away from all that, he can sort of like see things clearly because Cody Rhodes beat it back into him basically. And I don't know, I just don't really buy the fact that we went down that route. It's such a big U-turn and 180 that I just think that there are better ways of doing that, and they surely could have thought of something different. And I just thought a dynamic of a face versus face in a street fight is going to be really weird. But in fairness, they made it work out very well. There was a lot of respect between both men, and they threw it all out there. They left nothing in the ring, and it was one of those matches that was just complete and utter chaos from start to finish. And I've already said that a couple of times tonight, but this one definitely fit that bill. They fought all around the ringside area. They fought into the crowd, into the stands. Production areas. They went up the Cody Vader at one point with John Cena having Cody on his shoulders when he was rising up, and yeah, it led obviously all the way back to the ring where finish after finish after finish, like you already said. There was a lot. There was a hell of a lot in this contest to go through. But yeah, I think in terms of the result, I personally disagree, very strongly with this one because like I say, just going back to the story going into this one, this doesn't make any sense. Like you had the heel turn, and now we're a few months down the line off of that, and Cena's gone face again because of reasons of why not. We messed up. I'm sorry, Cena. Just go face again. That's basically what happened. And yeah, we're basically reset 4 months ago now because Cody Rhodes is once again the WWE champion after winning this one. And yeah, it just seems to be just reverting back to where we were before Elimination Chamber. So I don't know. I'm not really a fan. I think we've just taken a complete step back. The whole thing with Cena has been completely lost, and what was the point in all of that if they're not really going to do anything with it? Um, yeah, I don't know. Just a really, really big mess up, which again involved a certain person that, we have openly, possibly criticized, whether it be his fault or not. He's played a part in the story as well, being The Rock. I don't know whether, his absence has affected this the way it has, but I can't help but think, his name's tied into this whole thing again, and something's gone wrong again. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a reason to hold on to it, but I just really think this was a wasted opportunity with the heel Cena, which we've waited so many years for. We thought maybe it could happen, maybe it wouldn't. We've always been really hopeful. And then when it did take place, one, most people hated it. Two, it didn't last very long. Three, it had a really poor finish and the end goal was terrible. And four, it completely reset everything to back to what it was beforehand. Like, I really don't see what exactly is the benefit of doing it the way that they did it. So, yeah, the only thing that's good about this was that it was a very good match. It was incredible. It was quality between both men. And yeah, I was very interested throughout the entirety of the contest in watching them both completely destroy each other, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I just there's just so many flaws and potholes to this that I can't give it like a perfect rating, even though the match was probably deserving of it. Really, I gave it a 9 out of 10 just because at the end of the day, I like things that move forward, not backwards, and this is a massive step backwards for me personally. A lot of people would disagree with that, and fair enough. I'm not the biggest fan of Cody Rhodes. I'll happily admit that. I think he's boring. I think that he's vanilla. I think that he's just your classic yes man. But I think, when it comes to John Cena, it was something different. It was something entertaining, refreshing for a few months. And now we're back to where we were beforehand. So enjoy, drink up, and get ready for another year long or whatever it's going to be of Cody with the Vanilla Championship. So yeah, we're back, which is such a great position to be in.
So yeah, like I mentioned, typically on the polar opposite sides when it comes to these two guys. But I think for the match itself, and I know sometimes it's easier said than done, just separating the fact of the story we were being told and the match, making those two separate entities, I think is the biggest thing that I tried to do for this one, because the match itself. As you mentioned, I think is close to worthy, if not worthy, of a perfect rating. But I can't in good conscience give it that simply because of the flaw in the story that we were being told for the last 3 months. So yeah, I will agree with you. It is a step back, and also what feels like the biggest kind of I guess error to me is to have John do this at the beginning of SmackDown on Friday, not even the end or main event, which we kind of hit on that on the SmackDown recap. But you had a perfect opportunity if you wanted to turn him face, and Cody kind of been flirting with heel nature as well. People like calling him vanilla. What better way to fix that than show him as a heel? And I think a lot of people that have seen him both as a face and heel preferred his heel tendencies and thought he worked really well as a heel. So that to me just felt like that's where we were going, and you had the perfect opportunity to do so, whether it be that's where the story was originally going to go in the first place, or the persons involved with Cena didn't pan out, and that it is what it is. You had the perfect opportunity to do a double turn here, and when's the last time we've seen one of those? It's been a while. So it just felt like all the cards were in play, and for whatever reason they went with the very uneventful Friday turn. And yeah, like you said, two faces fighting in a street fight. Something you for sure can say you don't see very often. So yeah, it's unfortunate the story surrounding this match will probably always be bigger than the match itself, because the match itself was excellent. I did give this one a 9 out of 10. Just can't let the story just brings it down a little bit. Even with me trying to separate them, just can't quite do it. So, yeah, lots of talking points for both nights. I think that's fair to say with SummerSlam. Both of these night one and night two reactions are going to be a bit longer than our normal reaction PLE videos. But as we kind of hit on the beginning of this podcast, we mentioned night one looking like a pre-show to night two. But in the grand scheme of things, now that we have the whole weekend kind of lined up, curious to get your thoughts on this one, KP. Do you feel like there was much separation? I personally don't. Walking away from the weekend as a whole, I think both nights had moments, and I feel like night one was a lot closer to night two than I would have thought, provided how they looked on paper. And for me, the biggest takeaway being Rollins on night one. So curious to get your overall rating for night two and just kind of the grand scheme of things, what you thought of the whole weekend as a whole.
Yeah, I could basically just sort of like repeat what you just said, really, but I won't obviously go into all that. But basically, yeah, you make a really good point. I think, we did allude to sort of like how unbalanced the cards looked, with night one having, literally zero stipulation contests, and night two having all bar, was it one match that was no stipulation? Well, that included stipulation of some description. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, yeah, there was a whole lot going on paper on the second night compared to the first. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, based on what we could have had for night two, it didn't really live up to like the entirety of those expectations. There were a couple of matches that maybe fell a little bit short, and could have been a bit better, and could have done a bit more to sort of like keep up with the other matches. Because I think match of the weekend was definitely on night two, being the TLC contest. I thought that was absolutely incredible. And like I said, I give it a perfect rating. So ultimately, when that happens, that's going to be arguably the match of the weekend. So, but yeah, I think the moment of the weekend is 100% agree with you. Rollins winning the World Heavyweight Championship after cashing in on CM Punk, who just beat Gunter. It was an incredible way to end the show. That ruse was phenomenal, and yeah, I think that will be spoken about for a very, very, very long time. But yeah, I think night two as an overall, I gave it an 8 out of 10 because that's the average of all of my matches put together, which obviously makes sense. Which actually is higher than night one, but I don't think it was like head and shoulders clear, whereas on paper beforehand it looked like it probably was going to be. So yeah, I think that's a fair way to summarize it and to basically just go into what exactly I thought of it. But yeah, I enjoyed a lot of the matches over the course of the weekend, but just a few that maybe did sort of like let the side down a little bit, and obviously a couple of questionable booking choices for me personally.
I think it's fair to say that night one exceeded expectations and night two didn't quite live up to them. So it feels like they kind of balance each other out. I think possibly due for another video, but I think this could very well warrant a discussion on two nights, as it feels like we kind of hit on this before. It feels like that's a very slippery slope that inevitably we'll probably see more PLEs go to two nights. And I feel like Mania, even Mania, I've questioned in the past, is it two nights necessary? But I think especially when you start getting these other PLEs, will certainly be a hot topic of discussion. But yeah, overall, I gave night two a 7, which is exactly what I gave night one. It was actually a 6.5, but I did round up just because of the moment, the end of the show, and felt like it was worthy of a 7 over a 6.5. But that gives the entire weekend a 7. So yeah, I think you could certainly build a really good card up for one night. But I feel like there were certainly a lot of matches that didn't quite live up to the hype that surrounded it. So yeah, lots of talking points here, and some longer videos, but I feel like with these big PLEs, especially being two nights, naturally you're going to have more talking points than your average PLE. So with that, this has been our SummerSlam recap for night two. We will be back shortly with our normal, back to basics scheduling with Raw, NXT, and SmackDown recap over the next few days. But until then, this has been an episode of The Push with Nick and KP. And until next time, we'll see you then.